All right, welcome to the Multifamily Growthcast. My name is Tyler Devereaux. We're here for another Aloha Friday drip with Jackson, the man, Simmons, Campbell.
We're here.
We're here. We're
ready to drop some more knowledge. We're ready for it.
Speaking of dropping knowledge, dude, how about last week's Chris Crone interview?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Give us some feedback. How do you feel about it? How did you feel that went?
It was fun to talk to him, man. I learned a ton. That's what's fun about it. I learned a ton. You know, I mean, you saw on there, it wasn't my job to, you know, wax poetic like I'm going to do today, so put your freaking seatbelt on. It was just about listening, you know? And I loved it, man. One of the things that I loved is I asked him as an individual, you know, how do you prioritize your time as you continue to grow? And I loved how he said it. He went back and he's like, man, you have to say, in the beginning, you have to say yes to everything. You know, we grew up, he said something like, you know, growing up, it was like no to everything. Don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't impregnate that. That one made me laugh. I loved that one. And then he's like, then it has to turn to, you have to say yes to everything. Because when you say yes to everything, you get this huge collection of experiences, you know, things that went good, things that went bad. And then you get an understanding of what you should say yes and no on. And then you go back to saying no. And then you get back to saying yes, but you're then saying yes to things intentionally, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just kind of loved the process that he went through there. To all of you who haven't read his book, Limitless, you should definitely go read it. Great book. And then one more thing that I'll mention, then we'll dive in, is that it was so funny that he said he wanted to get to 5% body fat, because that is my fitness goal for this quarter is 5% body fat. But you sons of bitches took me out. I'm blaming you. I ain't taking ownership for it. You guys took me to gelato yesterday.
Ty.
And now I'm on it. Okay. I'm
Extreme ownership.
I'm taking
Extreme
ownership,
brother.
Lock it up.
I didn't put the spoon in.
Lock it up. I talked about separators on one of my last episodes, and then I freaking separated myself from those separators. Shiz almighty. But you know what? Back on the wagon. Here we go.
Yeah, forgive yourself. Move on. Also, a cup of gelato isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's so damn good.
It was
worth it.
It was really good.
Awesome. All right, what are we talking about, my man?
So today we're going to talk about, we've discussed this previously, but we're going to talk about the sell of Signal Hill. You're getting ready to sell another property.
Yeah.
So I want to go through that process.
Okay.
Of the process of selling a multifamily property.
Like what steps we take.
Yeah. Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So let's start.
Okay.
So the first thing about this property is you were planning on holding this property a lot longer than you are selling it. Why is that? Why are you selling before the end of the business plan?
I love it. So, yeah, Signal Hill is the property that we're selling, 122 units, Statesville, North Carolina. And I'll quickly, the reason we're selling, and then I'll kind of get into the process of like how we sell. But it's because it makes sense to sell. You know, we're always running a risk-return analysis and just figure out what risk is happening in the market and what returns we can get to our investors. And it's not that there's necessarily a ton of risk in the market, but there's a lot of return potential for our investors right now. And so we're always studying that, always studying market cycles, what's happening with job announcements, with growth, and do we see it maybe flattening, or do we see what's happening, right? And we weren't planning on selling Signal Hill, though. So we actually had people bringing us offers, and you know, we bought it for $7.4 million. Finally, somebody brought in an offer at $13.76, which would, you know, we projected returns to our investors to put this risk-return analysis in place. Okay, we projected returns to our investors of 20%, and they will receive, I think it's like 37% annualized returns.
If you're an investor, you know that those are very good numbers as well.
They're pumped.
Yeah.
You know, they're pumped. And so that's awesome. You know, so when we look at that and everything checks out, it makes sense to sell. And, you know, what are we going to do? It's not that we just take that money and go, you know, put it in a bank somewhere. All of us roll it over into new deals and new market and ride the wave again.
Yeah.
So
what's that system? What's that process look like in selling a property?
You know, you're looking at comparable market, or just a CMA, a comparable market analysis, see what the market stats are looking like, see if we want to sell. And if everything checks out, you know, I'll give you some basic steps, I guess. So I would say the first thing that we do, this one was a little bit different because brokers were bringing us these deals, like the offer.
Yeah.
But
in a normal situation, how would this go?
We would contact a broker. So we would get what's called a BOV, which is a broker's opinion of value. And that's just this preliminary step. So actually, backtrack. Your preliminary step, first off, is to choose which broker is going to sell your deal. Loyalty and relationships, I mean, it's obviously key in this business. So typically what we like to do is stick with the broker who brought us the deal. or who brings us the most deals, right? Because by having them sell our deal, what are they going to want to do? Bring us more deals, because they know we want to buy another deal as well. So, but if for some reason that doesn't make sense, then I'm going to get a BOV, a broker's opinion of value, from the top 2 to 3 brokers in the area.
Okay.
To get a good understanding of where we're at price-wise. Like, if we're going to identify this price that we're targeting, this price that we want to sell at, we have to make sure that it's realistic, right? So a BOV makes sure that that's realistic. It's this unbiased second opinion without having to shell out thousands of dollars for an appraisal. And that's critical. So that's where the BOV comes into place. Then they're going to typically ask you for a bunch of financials, like a bunch of things that they're going to need to help them understand what the value is. So whatever it is that they ask for, get it to them. That could be, your T12, which is a trailing trend report, just your financials. It could be the rent roll. And then, at that point, based on the BOV, what it comes back at, the value of that BOV, we select the broker and list the stinking property.
So then at that point, you're ready to put it on the market.
Then you're ready to put it on the market. There's a couple steps before that, though. So once we know we're going to list it, once we know we're going to sell it, we need to notify our lender.
Okay.
And we actually need to send them this official notification letter.
Okay.
And I think it's called like the notification of disposition is what that is. And that's just
sounds official. Sounds very official.
That's it. It's just that official notification of disposition. That's typically done, 1 or 2 months before we actually list that apartment.
Okay.
Because there's going to be some work that goes in before it actually goes and gets listed and ready to go.
Yeah.
So we let them know, once again, that we're going to exit so that they can plan and prepare everything on their end.
Is it you that lets them know as the weowner? Or do you have somebody in your team? It sounds like an official document, or it sounds like something super official. So who helps you with that?
Our attorney, real estate attorney.
Okay.
So we'll have a real estate attorney. They'll draft the notification. They'll send it to the lender. One thing that I'll say too, you want to check the details of your loan, because depending on the loan program that you chose when you bought the property, there may be a prepayment penalty as well as some yield maintenance, defeasance, and you have to keep that in mind when deciding to sell and when calculating your returns at exit. Because, man, if there's a huge prepayment penalty, that's going to drastically reduce your sales proceeds. We bought a 138-unit property last year. Almost exactly a year ago. It was Charbonneau. And we actually assumed their loan, sorry.
Right.
And the reason we did that is because they had a huge prepayment penalty. If they would have sold and we didn't assume their loan, I think it was like $1.8 million would have been their prepayment penalty.
Wow.
So you're going to need to know those kind of things too to make sure that are your return projections at exit, are they sound? Are they good?
So you want to almost be strategic about that.
Yes. And yes, first you have to calculate those things.
How do you go about being strategic there?
Well, I would say first off, you're talking more strategic with like knowing what those return numbers are going to be, right? And you have to know that, but I'll say this too. So if we're taking steps here, right? So the BOV from the broker, then we get into the engaging with the lender, letting them know, and then I would say one way that we make sure that we continue to maximize our exit price as well is being strategic about our operations.
Okay.
Meaning, you have to be mindful throughout the sales process. The value of the asset, the value of the apartment, it's going to be dependent on two things. The market cap rate, which that's not within your control. That's just whatever the demand in the market is. The other one, though, is the net operating income, and that is within our control. That's you're taking your income, your expenses, right? And you're subtracting the expenses from your income. It's giving you your net operating income, and that's how we determine the value of these properties. And so to maximize the value, you want to maximize the NOI. That means maximizing your income and minimizing the expenses. This whole process, especially right before you're going to sell the property. Really, you should be doing that the whole process, the whole time you own the apartment. But man, if there's ever a time to ramp up operations, it's when you're right before you're about to go sell.
Okay.
So once you've made a decision to sell, man, you have to be strategic about the operation. So what I mean by that is you don't start certain projects if the payback period, extends beyond the sales date. For example, let's say that you're planning in a few months. You're not going to go put in a playground that's $30,000 unless you know for certain that playground is going to return you at least $30,000
Right.
on exit, right?
Right.
So ways, other ways you can do that is optimizing your rent roll. Help you understand, like the rent roll, one of the most unique parts of a multifamily property are the sheer number of leases that are there. You have a ton of tenants, and really the value of those leases, so those individuals who are on the rent roll, that's how you determine the value of the property, right?
Right.
So the higher the rent roll, the value of the rent roll, the higher the value of the property, which means the more money that we'll make on exit as well.
Give us some strategies on how to do that.
How to maximize like your rent roll?
Yeah.
So you can increase occupancy.
Okay.
A lot of people, what they'll do to increase the occupancy, they'll start to increase their marketing budget. They'll also run some incentives. We do not do this, but some owners, I talk about this regularly, but some owners will run incentives like first month free rent, like right as they're about to sell. That doesn't truly maximize your rent roll. What that does is it makes it look like you have more people there, but those people are there not paying you anything. And a seasoned operator will sniff that out. So what you want to do instead is, yes, increase your occupancy, but do that by increasing your marketing budget or increasing your marketing efforts to be able to do that.
It's about staying honest and clean there with it too.
Totally.
Because they'll, like you said, they'll sniff it out if there's any fudging of the numbers is a term I hear thrown around quite a bit.
That's it.
When we're talking about underwriting these deals. So so they will sniff that out too.
And
so you have to be strategic. You
maybe
have to
they
actually
don't
do it.
Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
But it's not worth that risk in my opinion.
I agree.
So, and then also collections. Collections, maybe we pursue collections a little bit more aggressively than we would normally do. Once again, those collections will increase the income. And then, man, just evaluate and scrutinize your P&L. Like you should be doing that the whole time. But when you're going to exit, once again, scrutinize it and look at it just like we look at it when we go to buy an apartment. I'm going to scrutinize that P&L and determine what my value adds are.
Yeah.
So go through and figure out which income and expense line items can be improved, in the month leading up to selling the asset. That's, once again, it's going to help you maximize your exit price. And we make a lot of money at exit if we maximize our exit price. So.
Valuable. Super valuable.
Okay, now,
then what?
But there's more steps. Okay.
Yes.
So then we're going to start a bidding war, right? So we put everything in place. We prepared for it. Now the broker, if they're a good broker, they're going to start a bidding war. So they're going to create what's called an offering memorandum, an OM, and they're going to start marketing that to their list. And, then that's when the offers will start.
How long does it usually take for that to start happening, for the offers to start rolling in?
Once they've started putting everything together?
Yeah.
Usually that's done, I would say, over like a 4 to 6 week period. So the broker puts together the OM, they start sending it out, marketing it out, and then 4 to 6 week period or so is then when offers will start coming in. So these interested parties, these buyers that are interested, they're gonna take a very similar approach that we do. Once again, the system is the system.
Right.
So they're gonna take a very similar approach that we did when we bought that property. They're gonna talk to the property manager. They're gonna go tour units. They're gonna inspect the interiors. They're gonna analyze the rent comps. They're going to, run the numbers and then ultimately submit an offer. And once again, the goal is to create a bidding war. So how do you do that? You let everyone on the property know what you're doing, so that they can help you in that process.
Okay.
Now, once again, these employees on site, they work specifically for the apartment, so they may be nervous, right, that they're going to lose their job or whatever. So you have to give them some clarity and help them understand. The new owners are probably going to want to keep them. And if they don't, man, we have other properties, right? You have to let them know that if they help you, you will help them. Of course. And that is true.
Yeah.
This property is a perfect example of this, man. Our manager on there, her name's Carol Ann. And I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about Carol Ann, but she's the frickin' best, dude.
Okay.
She is the best. She's the best. She's the best on-site manager that we've ever had. And so
Shout out to Carol.
Shout out to Carol Ann, dude. That's no joke.
Yeah.
She's awesome. So they're going to help you, help you sell that essentially to the buyers and, the buyers that are coming to tour the property. Make sure that they're having good conversations. And then that will drive, the value up, the price up, and then get you the highest price possible, which is good.
So then at that point, you have a bunch of offers.
Yes.
How do you
Ideally,
you have a bunch of offers. Your properties, our properties, I'm sure. We have tons of offers because they're beautiful properties.
Bitchin' ones.
How do you screen those deals? How do you screen those offers? Do you go about screening those, or is it the broker that screens those? How does that? Because I'm sure there's going to be new people trying to buy this apartment, and you don't necessarily want to sell this apartment to somebody who can't handle it. So how do you screen? Yeah. How do you screen those?
Broker, that's one of the broker's major jobs. Okay. It's so funny though, dude, to be on the other end of this now. Like as I think of like when I first started going through this process, it's crazy to be on the other end. And this isn't the first property we've exited, but it's what I'm saying is as you're exiting properties and now you see it from a different perspective, dude, it helps you buy better properties. So the broker, what's going to happen? The broker is going to help you determine which ones are best. Like literally they're going to sell the top offer to you. So you're going to review the submissions together, review all those offers together. They're going to tell you what are the pros and cons of each offer. Hey, this person is offering more, but this is, some downsides. Or this person's offering less, but this is some upsides. And this is what their hard earnest money is. This is what their portfolio looks like. This is all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to invite those top offers to have what's called a best and final. And this is where we qualify the buyers even more. And this is when you're talking about screening out the newbies, this is like that final step to do that too.
Yeah.
So it's once again, it's fun. You begin to understand this process from a whole new perspective being on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going to tell you right now, it's way more fun being on the seller side than it is fighting for this deal on the buyer side.
I'm sure. Yeah. What kind of questions do you ask when you move on to that step? What is it that you're looking for?
So to like screen out the newbies.
Yeah.
I would say on a very basic level. Okay, you want to learn as much as possible about their track record and their funding capabilities and their proposed business plan. That's going to give you a good gauge on their ability to close as well. But also you want to help understand their track record. Ideally you want to sell to a sponsor that has this proven track record that they can close. What that means is like at a minimum, they've purchased a similar sized property in the past.
And why is that? Why would that be important?
Because you want to make sure the deal closes, and this is very important for a new person who is listening to this podcast to realize the seller has needs too. You want to buy that apartment, but that seller wants to make sure that they close the apartment. If I'm going to go through this whole process, man, I want to make sure that the person that we wrap it up with actually can close.
Yeah.
So a newbie has a way better chance of backing out of a deal during due diligence phase for a number of different reasons. Maybe they can't fund the deal. Maybe they don't qualify for the financing. Maybe they did poor underwriting on the deal and they realized that their numbers didn't work out the way that they thought they would. Or they don't have a qualified team to help them do that go through that whole process. So
I think that's so important for new investors to understand people going to buy these apartments. Because we have a lot of new people in the network that are just getting started, new investors just getting started acquiring these properties. This is so important to understand.
Totally.
That these things is what the sellers are looking for. Speaking from a seller right here, Tyler Devereaux, this is what he's looking for when he's selling these properties.
So how do you appeal to those needs?
Exactly.
And let me tell you something. I start out in this business 7 years ago, and I don't see it from a seller's perspective at all, man. I see it from my own perspective, but I do understand that I have to have a team, so I put a team in place. Well, now I've done a couple deals, and now I'm like, well, shit, dude. I'm the bee's freaking knees, man. I don't need to pitch another team. I'm going to pitch MF Capital Partners. Look what we have. We have 120 units, or I don't know, whatever it is, at that point.
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly, man, that your team, no matter what level you get to, your team is always gonna come into play. Dude, to this day, man, we just closed on Prosper. That's 419 units. We leverage the hell out of our team. We leverage Greg and Lisa. Mm-hmm. We leverage the team because that continues to make you look more and more attractive to the seller.
Again, it's something you talk about all the time when we're talking about multifamily real estate, and it's to build that team.
Yep.
This is another reason.
For sure.
To do that when you're buying properties.
For sure.
Perfect. Okay, next question I have for you. Does the attorney draft the purchase and seller agreement when you're negotiating?
Okay. So
let's talk about the negotiation part.
So we get through, the offers, we select that final offer, then we negotiate a PSA.
Yeah.
And what was your question again? Does the attorney draft it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Meaning our attorney.
Right.
Yes. So our attorney drafts it, not the buyer's attorney. And that's important because, let me help you understand. We want to have our attorney draft it for a number of different reasons, but the most important reason, we want to make sure that we start off on negotiations as close as possible to where we need those to be, not the other way around, right? So we want our attorney to draft it.
Okay.
Our attorney will send it over to the PSA. We'll send it over to them, and then we'll go back and forth.
That's interesting. That's interesting because as I've been learning about multifamily real estate, it's you create the PSA and you send it to the seller.
But you're thinking LOI. So you're thinking LOI.
Okay.
So the LOI, letter of intent, that's the offer. That's what we've filtered through before. But then once those basic terms are agreed upon, then our attorney is definitely going to draft the PSA.
Okay. And
the reason we start with an LOI first is we don't want to engage with an attorney and spend attorney fees, having them review these LOIs if we're not even close to the terms. But then the PSA, though, that's a different ballgame. That's the actual binding contract. And so that's what we want to make sure that our attorney, and that's what everything that we're about to go through with due diligence in the sale, it's really the PSA that determines all the ins and outs of that. So we have our attorney draft it, and then we send it over to their attorney, and there's back and forth. That back and forth is, 7 to 10 days, sometimes longer, but it's hardly ever any less than that. Once again, there's just a lot in there that we need to make sure are in line and ready to go.
And your attorneys are the ones going back and forth. That you are usually pretty hands off at that point.
No, we're still involved in there. Like the attorney will review their corrections, and they'll talk to us about them, and we'll be like, no, that's bullshit. Take that out.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's funny to see. It's funny to see on both sides, on the buyer side and on the seller side, what things different groups get hung up on. Right. Everyone has these different needs, concerns, and worries, and they're all trying to make sure that they're in this position of not getting screwed over. But the seller's trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So we just back and forth.
Then what?
Then we start to due diligence. Really, like PSA starts, due diligence starts, and then we have to fulfill our obligations through due diligence. So negotiations are all done. And there may be, once again, there is definitely going to be back and forth during the PSA period. Then once everybody signs the PSA, due diligence begins for the buyer. So we'll have to get the buyer everything that they need. But the buyer's going to have to, they're required to, adhere to everything that's scheduled and agreed upon in the purchase and sell agreement as well. So they have X number of days to perform due diligence. They have X number of days to close. They have X number of extensions. But I think it's important for anybody who's selling a property to understand, we have to, fulfill on our end too. We owe them whatever we agreed upon. They can visit the property, at any time, or they have a certain number of days that they have access to tour all the units. They get a look at our bank statements, the financials, the leases, the marketing materials, everything. They're open book there. So this actionable that I'll say is make sure that you fully understand what you're providing them in the PSA, what you have to provide them there and by which date. Because if you don't do that, let's say that we have to provide them certain documents by a specific date, that's going to be listed in your purchase and sell agreement.
Right.
But let's say we don't understand that, and we don't get them that information, well, that means that we would be in default of the contract. And what that means is that would provide this out for the buyer. If the buyer decides for some reason they want to back out or they want to try to renegotiate, well, that provides this out for the buyer that they can exercise later and puts us now in a weak position. So you have to understand what we need to have to them and get it to them.
Yeah.
Or else, once again, you're defaulting in the contract, not just the buyer.
Not only that, but hitting those critical dates gives you so much, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, man. Totally
momentum?
Not only momentum, but it gives you validity.
Oh, yeah.
As a seller, as a real estate investor, hitting those crucial dates.
Yeah, and as a buyer too, huh?
Yeah.
You're very familiar with that on the buyer side because you help us with all the loan stuff.
Yeah.
So dude, we're always looking at critical dates and what do we have there and what do we need to do.
It's important to hit those dates.
Tracking them all the time, huh?
Yeah.
So once the due diligence is completed, the buyer's then going to work with the lender and the title company. They'll finalize everything and then prepare to close.
So what's that look like? Closing.
That's one of your last steps, I would say, is you close and then you distribute the sales proceeds. And dude,
How do you split up those cells? How do you split that up?
Well, first off, I'll tell you before we even get to that part, the last couple days before you go to close is crazy. Like there's tons of freaking signatures, tons of signatures. Like the couple days before you close, you'll sign hundreds of documents. And you see that too from the seller side. Yeah. But my gosh, man, my inbox is just, I'm getting a text message because I'm not the best at emails. So I get text messages, hey, DocuSign, need you to sign it. Hey, DocuSign, need you to sign it. Hey, you missed this one. Hey, go sign this one. It's like, whew.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But then on closing day, this is the fun part. Closing day, you'll be wired, the sales proceeds. And then you're going to distribute those sales proceeds to your investors. And so your question, how do we split those up?
How do you split up that?
It just kind of depends. It depends on what was agreed to and outlined in the offering docs. So when we go to buy a property, we're going to put together what's essentially the operating agreement. It's a private placement memorandum. And in that private placement memorandum, you have the operating agreement, which is the rules of the investment entity, right? So what percent of profits go to who? What percent of cash flow? How does that work? So our typical deals, and there's a million ways to structure, but typically our deals are 70-30 split, which means investors get 70% of the cash flow, 70% of the equity, and we get 30%. But we do have return thresholds. So let's say that this return threshold is, we need to get them a certain, what we call a preferred return, which all that means is that investors get paid before we do. Let's say we haven't hit those return thresholds. Well, then there's going to be a catch-up at exit to make sure that investors are taken care of. And then we take those net proceeds and split them up from there.
So it makes split up pretty easy at the end because it's stuff that was already decided on.
Oh, yeah. You have to decide that up front. Once again, you have to give investors a clear understanding of what the rules are so they can make a decision on if that fits for them and what they're looking to invest their money into. But I'll tell you, man, that's the fun part. Like if you think that they're happy when they're getting cash flow checks, dude, wait till they get their equity check. That's when they are ready and anxious to start the process over again. So, dude, I'm going to give you another step, actually, another part of that because one thing that I can't even believe that I forgot to even mention this, but you have to identify another property that you have ready for these investors to invest in. Ideally, we would like to do a 1031 exchange with everybody. Right. So all these investors roll over, as well as us, roll over into a new deal. Maybe, not all of them want to do a 1031 for whatever reason. I don't know. Still, though, most of those investors are going to want to reinvest into another deal. So, man, have another deal ready for them to put their money into. Like, I remember...
And you as the seller as well.
Oh, we're putting our money.
You're putting your money right back into it. It's the only smart thing.
Dude, I don't want to touch the money, man. If we touch the money, I have to pay taxes on that money.
Right.
God, I hate paying taxes.
They put it right back into another property.
Right into another deal.
Sorry, I interrupted you though. You were getting ready to say something.
I was going to say that it was fun for me. Nate is my brother-in-law, and he invests in a bunch of our deals. And the first deal that we exited with Nate was a property called Cedars. And I just remember how pumped Nate was like, because it was a great return too. Yeah. And he was pumped through the hold period, but then at the exit, it was fun for me to have that insider perspective for him too.
Yeah.
It was just fun. That's it.
It's awesome.
So there you go, dude. Those are your steps, man.
It's a lot.
Your property.
We just went over a lot. I'm going to put together a PDF with these steps. It's going to be in the description. So look in the description. I'll make sure that PDF's there. Fill out some information. We'll shoot it over to you of these 9 steps because we just went over a ton. Dude. We went over a ton. And we want to make sure that with these items are applicable. These things that Ty's talking about are applicable. So we're going to create something and get it up in the description.
You know that there's 2 people that just happen, right? Two things just happen. There's people that have been taking notes fervently, pausing, repeating, rewinding, who are like, shit, Jackson, why did you say that beforehand? And then you got those other people who are sitting back and they're like, they haven't been taking any notes. And they're like, God bless you, Jackson.
Or driving their car, working out, doing something. So chances are I'm not the best at taking notes when I listen to podcasts. So if someone would provide me with pre-taken notes, that would help me a ton. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that for everybody listening.
Dude, I love it, man. That's awesome.
Hawaiian value.
Yes, dude, we got to do a Hawaiian principle.
We always end with the principle.
Okay, it's November, and there's this special holiday in November called Thanksgiving. giving, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, dude, we have to do the Hawaiian principle, which is mahalo. We have to. The Hawaiian word mahalo means to give thanks, right? That is, mahalo is this attitude of gratitude. It's essentially, it's this, and I would say an attitude of gratitude is the essence of a happy and thriving life. The more that, and it's more than just making some gratitude list or saying thank you at the grocery store or something like that. It's literally living mahalo. And what that is a constant attitude of gratitude no matter what's going on. And, we actually just mentioned this in the Maui meeting. We have a Maui meeting every first Wednesday of the month with all the employees of the Multifamily Mindset. And I mentioned this same principle. And I mentioned how much easier it is to live an attitude of gratitude here in Maui. Do you agree with that?
I do.
I mean, dude, we just went last night and we watched these huge waves, dude. And I hear, as we're walking back from that, Max is like, holy shit, dude. We live here.
Yeah.
We all live here. It's beautiful sunset. It's just amazing, right? And it is, dude. Rain or shine, dude, we're grateful. Whether we're in the mountains or we're in the ocean, we're grateful. And I just think that that's so important, in this month to live mahalo, to truly have this gratitude and be happy for everything that we have, and to also be happy for things that other people have. Other people that have, that are closing deals and maybe you haven't closed a deal. Dude, be happy for those people, dude. Celebrate those people. Congratulate those people. I'll say this, man, when we take the focus off of ourselves and we put more of our thought towards other people about how we can serve them, how we can be happy for them, when we focus on service, dude, our life becomes joyful. So my challenge to everyone is to live mahalo this whole month and even beyond. And when you do that, man, you will have a life of joy and gratitude, especially though as you're selling properties and buying properties, it's a lot easier to be grateful at that point too.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Thanks, Ty.
You're very welcome, man. Thank you for how long today?
30 minutes.
Woo! Shaving off time. Shaving off time.
But
I love
not
it.
shaving off value.
No,
because there was so much value in this. It's insane.
I love it. Okay, thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, if you haven't given us a review, hey, listen, I don't even know if I need to check these reviews. I don't know if there's been any reviews about the Aloha Friday drips, but I want some feedback, man. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we can get better. Let us know guests you want to have on, topics you want us to cover, how we can do better, man. We want to know that kind of stuff as well.
Absolutely.
And then in the essence of mahalo for listening, mahalo for tuning in every day to Dallas, tuning in every Friday, tuning in every Saturday for the extended cuts. We love y'all. We'll see you next time. Peace.